Last week, I sat down with my husband Rohan and we finally put a name to something most of you have felt but couldn't call by name: microbullying. You know, the eye roll, the sigh when you share an idea, the joke that isn't a joke. On their own, each one seems small enough to explain away. But when it's the same person and the same target over and over, that's a pattern. And patterns are what do the damage. Welcome back to the Belonging Advantage. I'm Dr. Patricia Robinson, and this is part 2 of our 3-part conversation on microbullying. Today, the conversation gets personal. Rohan asked me about my own years inside organizations, what I witnessed, what I found myself on the receiving end of, and how this research chose me as much as I chose it. We talk about something I need you to hear. The people who look the strongest are often the ones you need to check on the most. Because a lot of people are performing fine at work. They show up, they deliver, they smile. And all the while, no one has any idea what is accumulating under the surface. Let's get into it. Microbullying doesn't announce itself, right? It builds. It builds and it compounds. And by the time someone can fully feel its effect, they've often been absorbing it for a long time.
Okay. All right.
For a long time.
And with that, I can say that we may not know what the emotional and mental effects of someone being treated in such a way which they are not being helped. We don't know how that may affect that person
So true.
over a while.
So true. And I have more about the effects of that on
Okay, all right.
in other findings.
All right, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No.
All right.
I have 3 more findings coming out, and it'll touch on some of those things as well.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, can I ask you this question?
Go ahead.
All right. Now, you have been doing this work for a while now. All right. You have been doing your research. You have been doing the podcast, and you came up with, different frameworks. And I have watched you, and there are moments which, I have thought to myself, what's happening here right now? This feels like, that she's.
That I'm living it?
Well, yes, because I think the effects of the effects of what someone may feel, they are able to talk about it, but they become passionate about it because it's either they are seeing it or they have experienced it.
I will say to that, in my years of working in different organizations, I have witnessed various forms of bullying and microbullying, right? It exists. And I've watched how people responded to it, right? How people have responded to what they see, what they've heard, how the organization responds to it as well. And, speaking personally, over the years, again, in various organizations I've worked at, I can see where I have been on the receiving end of certain things, and it's not to be dramatic, but, you begin to see these patterns occurring and reoccurring, and you see it usually after the fact, right? And I think when I had to do this research and select a topic, I wanted to do something that was going to be interesting and something I wanted to be captivating, right? And so as we began the studies and I began to think about the different research, I landed on this. And when you are been working for a while, you experience a lot. You experience the language in emails that may come across your desk. You may experience the undermining of work, of group activities. You begin to see those things, and like I mentioned earlier, you don't know what it is. You don't have a name for it. And it was going through my courses to prepare for my research that it began to click what exactly it is. We hear about bullying in the high schools, in cyberbullying, all those type of things, but workplace bullying is just as real. And so when I came to understand this, that's how I got into this work. I've always done work in belonging, sense of belonging, and this works in tangent with that. And so when you begin to understand the patterns, and whether you have the language for it or not at a given time, you begin to know what people are feeling, begin to understand what people are feeling. And I think that is part of why I do this work, because people have lived experiences that need to be voiced, need to be heard, need to be understood. I'm not saying the world needs to be perfect and an organization needs to be perfect, because there is no such thing, right? However, I wholeheartedly believe that the tension, the toxicity of organizations and people can be minimized if people truly took the time to listen to one another and really begin to understand their own behaviors and the effect it has on others, and then others being able to voice what they are feeling without the fear of retaliation.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm a very passionate person, and that can be both good and bad. Because sometimes I wear my emotions on my shoulder, especially if I get disturbed. It will be seen on my face. And I have been around you, and I'm asking you this within the classification of strength. I don't see you as an individual who is easily pushed and moved by a person's action or disposition. You and a lot of people have said that you are so strong.
And those are the ones you need, and those are the ones you really need to check on, right? Because it looks like strength, right? We have people who are absorbing and dealing with a lot of things that may seem as if they have it all together. They have strength, but on the outside, it's a whole different thing, right? And you've seen me over the past couple of years, and you've seen how the different changes that have occurred in my life and the different things I've had to face and how I've dealt with them. And some I've dealt well, some I have not dealt well with. And when I say not dealt well with, things do affect us, and it affects our body, and it affects us silently because you can't see it, right? You don't see any scars, you don't see any cuts, but internally your body is going through a whole different thing. And I think it's important that we are able to speak to that, right? Because a lot of people, in situations like this, they perform fine at work, totally fine. They show up, they deliver, they smile, they make others feel good, and all the while, no one is understanding, or no one has any idea what is accumulating under the surface. What comes to mind right now is when you see a duck on the water, on the lake or what have you, you think it's just gliding, looking so pretty, gliding on the water. But underneath, their little feet are paddling steadily to make them stay afloat and to keep moving. And that's the same thing that's happening right now. People are going through stuff, they're dealing with stuff, but yet still they're showing up.
And what I am hearing is that whenever a person is going through, but yet they are not being seen, and this is accumulating and becoming worse. To me, the word that's coming to my mind is that that individual later on, depending on their strength and where they are mentally, psychologically, spiritually, it can become combustible.
Yeah.
Well, it can, the situation as such. I think in the years past, we hear individuals who have been angry and angered with organizations, how based on their mental state, they have done some really, catastrophic, detrimental, life-changing things because of how they were feeling, but yet they had no conversations or no one knew.
Yeah, and they show up and they perform, but then catastrophic, as you're mentioning, it could be to themselves as well as to other people. And so everyone assumes that they are okay. Everyone assumes that they're doing well. Even them themselves at times believe they are doing well, that they are okay, right? But internally, they are not doing well. And that begins to manifest itself. Like you said, it could be catastrophic, or it could be in other health-related situations that manifest itself at a later time.
And if you don't mind me chiming in, and that's why I said earlier how it affects the organization, because now this person is calling in sick, and this pattern begins to develop to develop over time. Again, it's affecting the organization because that person that should be in place in order to help the productivity of the organization is now they are no longer there.
Yeah, but I won't talk much about that because that's another episode coming up, another finding. Okay.
All right.
But listen, the performance, when you think about that, the performance of being okay, of somebody always trying to show up and to do what they need to do and to appear to be okay, that is one of the most exhausting parts of microbullying.
Okay.
Because you're not just managing the behavior, you're managing other people's perception of you while you're in it.
Right. Okay. All right. Managing another person's perception of you, and depending on your perception of yourself and what you are believing another person's perception of you, again, that can lead a person to not being able to be functionally efficient at the moment when they need to be. And maybe I'm getting into your other episode, that can transition into home.
You can't really separate it, right? Because who you are is who you are.
Right.
And if you have to be somebody else at work, somebody else at home, somebody else at church, somebody else in the grocery store, you are not being your genuine self, right? So we have to slow down. We have to really be honest with ourselves and take a look at ourselves and to really understand who we are, what we are contributing to an organization's culture, what we are receiving through an organization's culture. So you can't just look at it one-sided. You have to look at it holistically to really understand what is going on with the people within an organization.
All right. And, I'll say this quickly, and then I'm going to ask you another question, because I've had conversations with individuals, and the person said to me, we actually spend more time at work than we do at home.
Yep.
And spending so much time at work, we definitely want to make sure that we are in the right frame of mind
Yeah.
to be able to be effective and efficient so that we are able to come back home and be mentally stable.
Mentally in one piece. And I mean, I understand not everyone at an organization, at a job, is going to be the best of friends.
Right.
You're not going to be friends with everybody in the organization, but you can be social. You can be pleasant with people, right? We don't all like the same things. We don't all do the same things. But how you make a person feel when you're at an organization, at work, is just as important, because you, like you just said, you spend so much time at work that you have to find a way to make it a environment that is positive, that is engaging, and that will people want to be there and want to the best for everybody else in the organization, versus these micro-bullying type of tactics to undermine and to exclude, or those have no place in an organization.
So maybe I might give you another episode with this question. I guess this is just a thought, professionalism and microbullying, because when we go into any organization, place, or home, at times we have been trained to be professionals. We have different trainings, and there's an expectation of professionalism, whether you agree or disagree with an individual or not. So just touch on that briefly, and then let me go into my question.
There's a theory in change management that talks about.
So are we going to go back to your research?
No. I'm going to answer your question. Give me a second here. There's a theory in change management that talks about it talks about unfreeze, relearn, and then refreeze.
Okay.
Right? So, and if I'm saying that incorrectly, please forgive me, but
engage her.
Yeah.
Engage her.
But let me explain it. In an organization, in our lives, in a person's life, we've learned a lot. We've been passed, a lot of things have been passed down, right or wrong. Some of them mostly wrong. So we have to unlearn, unfreeze those things that we have learned in the past that is not serving us well.
Correct.
We have to unlearn those things, unfreeze those things. Then we have to relearn what is the correct way or the better way. Let me not say correct, but it's the better way, right? And then once you've learned a better way, you now refreeze that to become the new normal, right?
Okay.
So you go through this process because we've all been trained a certain way in our profession, in our homes. We've all been trained a certain way, taught to act, taught to believe, taught to respond a certain way. And it may not be serving the right purpose in this day and age. So we have to relearn, rethink, keep learning, keep researching, keep investigating, keep networking with other people to learn a better way that's going to serve a purpose for ourselves individually and also for the organization, right? And then once we've learned that, now we're responsible for what we have learned. And we have to now put that into action and keep that momentum going forward so we refreeze that, what we've just learned.
Okay. So you touch on something there, and we are also looking at culture in both ways. In essence, the past can relive itself with anyone in the future. In essence, what you may have learned in the past can affect you in the future. And then while you are in the future, you can unfreeze, relearn what you have learned in the past. So culture is vital on both aspects.
Especially in culture, because we were raised a certain way. Our parents, our grandparents taught us certain things, and many of what we learned in the past, good stuff, right? Good stuff. But then there are some things that we carried over from our ancestors that we need to let go. We need to move on from that. We need to do better. they did the best they could with what they had, but we have a whole lot more, a whole much more resource at our fingertips. And so we have to let go of some of those things to be able to move our family, our society, our organizations forward, because those things from the past is not serving us well in the present and going into the future.
So it's not about us.
It's not. It's not. We have to be focused on others and what the best way to move forward together. It's not about what's the phrase? Upping one-upping somebody,
yeah,
having the upper hand on somebody, because we're all running a race. We all have a purpose. And when we're coming together in a work environment, each person is there for a purpose and for a reason. And so it makes sense to work together, make it a collaborative environment, make it an environment that is positive.
That's where we'll pause for today. Next week, Rohan and I wrap up this 3-part conversation on microbullying, and we're bringing it all the way home. So make sure you're subscribed and following so you don't miss the final part. And before you go, I want to hear from you. If anything in today's conversation felt familiar, if you have been the duck gliding on the water while your feet paddle underneath, share your experience with me. Leave a comment on any of our pages at Dr. Patricia Leeds, or just send me a DM. Your story matters, and naming what you've been carrying is where the healing starts. You can find The Belonging Advantage on Spotify, YouTube, and Substack. Subscribe, follow, and join the conversation. I'm Dr. Patricia Robinson. Keep asking the hard questions, because that's where belonging begins.